Hello, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who are from Chicago-ish originally, live in New York now. I don't even know the intro anymore. It's been so long. I am Adam Amawala. I am one of those comics. I'm here with your favorite, Kevin McCaffrey. The fans have spoken. No one said that. I don't know.
Favorite what? Yeah. Hey, it's we're back. Regardless of intro, but I think people will figure out what's happening.
I think they know
I would
what's
be
up.
very interested if people got here, were listening to this, and then like, where are we going with this? Why are they talking about one specific baseball team a bunch? Which we are. We're talking about the Cubs. Follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram and all those things. And actually, there have been some actual Cub things that have happened this week. I guess, do you want to start with the All-Star game?
Yeah, I think let's start there, and then we'll talk about the draft, of course.
Mhm.
Did you get to watch either event? I know you had shows the last few nights.
Yeah, I got to watch neither event. I did get to listen to a good amount of the All-Star game itself on the radio, where the Cubs did actually, we can say they had four All-Stars because Boog Shambi and Doug Glanville ended up working the radio for ESPN. I'm fairly certain, unless I just got lucky and got that thread. But
No, I believe so.
yeah.
I was listening on my phone on the MLB app, and the only feed available was them. So I'm assuming that was like the broadcast.
Yeah. So they were great. I mean, it was it was a very good very good broadcast there, and and both Cubs got on base in a game where almost no one got on base.
That is true. Yeah. Ian Happ walked. He came back from an 0-2 count, and I would love to characterize it as like, oh, he battled back. No, it was 0-2, and
Right.
then there was not a pitch that was even close. Which, like, I'm not that there's anything wrong with taking a walk in an All-Star game, but I'm sure most people would
Right.
rather hit. Like, I feel like taking a walk as a major league player in an All-Star game is the same as like me taking a walk in slow pitch softball. Like, yeah, I can do it, and I guess it's productive, but I'm not there to
Right.
walk. Like, I'm there to hit. I want to have
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's a good comparison because in slow pitch softball, no one's like, man, he's out here working counts. Like
Right.
you're not. Yeah, I feel like you're not being scouted in that deepest sabermetric way. You want to
No.
show up and bang it, but but Ian took his walk and he got. And it's better than
Yep.
not doing that.
Yep, and Wilson struck out in his first at bat, and then he hit a ball to third, which was booted. But I guess it was deemed a hit or was it an error?
They deemed it an error, which I feel like in an all-star game, I guess it affects the pitcher's stats, but for the most part, it's just like, who cares? Everything's a hit. It should be like
Right.
little league rules at some point because like just give him a hit.
The only person who's really made errors in an All Star game is Dan Ugla. You remember that game?
Yes, I do. He made like a bunch, right?
Yeah, I think it was at Yankee Stadium. It might have been that year that they had it at old Yankee Stadium before they demolished it. And I want to say he made like 3 or 4 errors, which is like
Yeah.
it was a game that went into extra innings. He was out on an island. Like that's gotta really suck.
Yeah. I remember that being just like it seemed like it was clearly not that Dan Ugla was a good fielder. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, but it sounds different.
Okay, hold on one.
Oh, now sounds good. Sounds good.
Now sounds good. Oh man. The new MacBooks don't have the normal USB feed.
Oh no.
So you have to like get an adapter to put in, and then
So idiotic.
it's so fucking stupid, and it wiggles out and it's loose, and there was a new update and everything's worse. Hey, welcome to America 2020, everybody. But yeah. Anyway, it's not like he was Dan Ugla was a good fielder anyway, but it was one of those things where it got in his head. It's on a big stage, and he's just like, well,
Yeah.
I'm never gonna fucking catch a ball again. Like that's just how this is gonna go, and I respect that because I feel like that in life many
Yeah.
times.
But so I guess you got to listen to the game. I was able to watch the whole game. Initially, it looked like there might actually be some scoring. Obviously,
Mhm.
the NL jumped out to an early lead. It was not to be, but Paul Goldschmidt absolutely hit the shit out of a ball
Mhm.
against hometown hero Tony Gonsolin. It
Mhm.
was cool to see Kershaw throwing to Contreras like that. That's a cool thing for sure.
Absolutely. It's really cool. And you can tell obviously Wilson has been such a guy who has made the All-Star game count for himself. He homered
Mhm.
immediately, right? As soon
Yeah.
as he was an All-Star. We all saw footage of how emotional he was getting told he was the All-Star starter the first time, which Ian Happ also there's video going around about how much that meant to him too. But Wilson always really has fun at these things, and obviously him getting to hit back to back with his brother William in
Very
this game
cool.
was amazing too.
Yeah, very, very cool story. So that was fun to watch. So I guess you missed most of the kind of mic'd up stuff if you weren't able to watch on TV. There were some places where they utilized it well, other places not so much.
Hmm.
That is always a very cool feature of these sorts of games, much like the spring training game with the Cubs. From right before the world stopped, as a matter of fact.
Hmm.
But that was a particularly cool thing. And in this case, they had Manoah backed up, mic'd up rather, the pitcher, very large pitcher for the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
I want to say he's like 6'7", 260. He's a big man.
he's a big boy up there. Yeah, for sure.
My favorite part, I think, was when they had Nestor Cortez and Jose Trevino mic'd up as battery mates. That was really cool to hear them communicating what pitch they were going to throw. That I liked a lot. Manoah was taking. It was funny. He asked Smoltz to tell him what to pitch, and then Smoltz told him, and he was like, "No, I'm not going to go with that."
Oh, that is very funny. I didn't see that, but that's great, and also cool for like Cortez and Trevino as two guys who I hope for their sake they do make more All-Star games. But that's a classic. Like this might be the only time for these guys, where they're
Absolutely.
sort of playing out of their minds. It came out of nowhere for both of them, and they're here as All-Stars. So it's cool when those guys get a chance to really have some fun in
Yeah.
this game when it's a once in a lifetime experience.
They also did a thing where Big Poppy like ran through the dugout interviewing people, which I thought was funny at the time. Apparently, most of baseball Twitter hated it, and we're not a fan. I will say it is shitty that they did that like during Miguel Cabrera's at bat, and they essentially didn't show the at bat
I'm
after like heaping all of this praise on Pujols during his at bat. Now, granted, we don't know if Cabrera's going to retire, so that might be part of it. That it's not quite the same farewell tour, but I mean, I feel like they deserve equal respect.
Well, they did the thing where Miguel Cabrera, you're good and old, and that's why you get to come here. So yeah,
Right.
you should be treating it exactly the same. That
Totally.
is it. I'm all for like the miking up is fantastic
Hmm.
in these games. Like miking up, absolutely. You can really plan when you're going to do a former player sideline dugout interview around what's coming up, and it shouldn't step on anyone's like a legend's
Right.
last all-star at bat or anyone's at bat who this might be the only time they're in the all-star game. Like, could you
Right.
imagine if that was if like they were just showing the dugout and didn't have video of like Trevino in his one all-star at bat? You know how furious you would be if you're him? I would lose my mind.
Yeah, totally. And also like you can control how this works. Like do it in between innings. All
Right.
you need is 3 minutes. Like I'm sure they're not going to sacrifice the money that they make from advertising, but like there probably was a better way to do it. But in general, the mic'd up stuff was fun. They had Julio Rodriguez mic'd up, and he was the only person who was mic'd up, and then also made a play while he was mic'd up, which is
Hmm.
always really cool to see. But in terms of the game itself, I mean, as always, good pitching beats good hitting, seemingly. If they really want to put on a show, they should just have all-star players, like offensive players, and then the pitchers are the people with the highest ERAs in baseball.
That would be an interesting competition to make the All-Star game at the end too, where you got to edge your ERA up to get in the or down ERA up to go down to get to the
Right.
bottom 10 or whatever it is. Yeah, but there, Emmanuel Clase obviously came in throwing impossible pitches. He was
Oh
one
my
pitch
God.
away from an immaculate inning, throwing 100-mile-an-hour
Yeah.
cutters, and it's just like, well, the All-Star game was a nice peek at some guys who were like, oh, I don't know how anyone gets a hit off of these dudes. Um,
Right.
and I will say I mean, not that we probably have a lot of White Sox fans listening, but Dylan Cease probably the most inexplicable snub of the year, and
Right.
in a while, really.
Yeah,
Not
and there were
speaking of
other
his,
snubs that were then remedied because of injuries, like
yeah,
Ty France ended up making the
exactly.
team, or a few other people that certainly deserved to be there but
Rodon,
didn't.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand why Cease wasn't on the team. That's I guess it's one of those things where if every team needs a representative, do you get screwed by that? Like the
a
the
little
guy who
bit,
was
yeah.
the athletics representative. I don't know much about him. I think he's a pitcher, and I'm sure he's having a good year, but like a better year than Cease, I don't know.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Uh, Yeah, so that, but I think it seemed like a fun weekend. The Cubs
Yeah.
broadcasters did a good job on the radio. I can report. Yeah, I was
Giancarlo
performing.
Stanton made a ball look like it was about one third of its size. He hit it so hard.
Yes, he hit a classically Stanton blast, which I do wonder. It's not like these guys aren't trying to hit the ball as hard as they can all the time normally.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if in an all-star game they sort of let it fly even more in a way that you wouldn't in a normal game because you have to make some level of contact, but yeah, that was a fun homer to see. And he joined an elite club of players who have been all-star game MVP, regular season MVP, and I think led the majors in home runs. Like
Hmm.
I think it's only 5 or 6 guys that I saw. So good for him.
Very cool. But yeah, ninth straight loss in the All Star game for the NL. I mean, who cares? I suppose
Who
it's
right.
this time it doesn't count, nor should
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, is that the Cubs new? It's different here. This time it
Jesus.
doesn't
Yeah.
count in 2021,
Yeah,
2022,
I feel
2023.
like the subtext of that is it's different here, semicolon. It's much worse than it's
Yeah.
ever been.
Yeah, it's
Um, But speaking of this time it counts, which of
mhm.
course was an overcorrection to the All Star game being tied. Had this All Star game been tied, it would have gone into a home run derby format, which is a great idea. And I'm gonna root for a tie every All Star game moving forward. Like that is a perfect example of like doing something fun that doesn't have something end in a tie, that doesn't involve pitchers throwing 6 extra innings. Frankly, even if they just did the extra innings as the regular season rules of having the ghost runner, probably it wouldn't go that far into a game. Nevertheless, it's a cool idea to have teams select who they want their home run representatives to
Yeah,
be.
I think what I like most about it, besides it's fun to see people at homers, of course, and just watching how the players celebrate during the home run derby and stuff is fun. So getting more of that, and maybe even in a grander sense, would be cool. But it's also nice when a manager doesn't have to hold a pitcher back for possible extra innings, so you can get
Right.
everyone into the game. You can plan that okay, we're going to see everybody, and you can
Mm-hmm.
sort of map it out ahead of time so you don't have to hold a guy out in case and then he never gets to make an all-star appearance, like because that always sucks when that's happened in the past. So yeah, that would have been interesting. And I feel like the teams, they announced who the guys would be
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time, and it would seem like two very different strategies. Like I think it was the National
Yeah.
League went with like Schwarber
You're right.
and and Alonso, I think, and someone else. But it seemed like they went with home run derby dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ty France was one of the dudes that the AL announced, who's a good hitter and having a great year, but not who you would think for like a home run derby dude.
Right. Like it would be like if the NL was like Jeff McNeil is our home
Yeah,
run
right.
representative.
Yeah, a good, well-rounded, all fields
Yeah.
hitter. So, yeah, that was an interesting rule that maybe we'll see someday.
Right.
And then
So yeah, game was cool, and then the Derby, which I assume you were going to start talking about. The real impressive performance was from Julio Rodriguez, who did not ultimately win, but put on an absolute show. I mean, I believe he had over 30 home runs in both of the first 2 rounds. I want to believe that Schwarber just gave it to Pujols. It doesn't seem that way, although there is some talk that he didn't get one of his home runs
They mis
counted.
they
They
miscounted it.
did, I think,
Yeah,
right?
they
Yeah,
officially miscounted it, and I had $25 on DraftKings on that, and they have not refunded it, which they should. Also, DraftKings hasn't paid
they
us
should.
for the spots that we aired for them in February, and then they emailed us and asked, "Do you guys want to do more?" And I was like, "Do you ever want to pay in the first place?" And haven't heard back from them. So DraftKings maybe not doing the best at catching up money wise so far.
Well, FanDuel, if you're listening to this, come hit us up.
Holler at me, FanDuel. Yeah. Yeah, but it was, and then Soto won the Derby, which that was my other pick. And of course I was kicking
Hmm.
myself after that, was like, shit, I like that I should have gone
No,
with that pick.
Schwarber was a good pick because
Yeah.
theoretically, I think the expectation was that he would breeze through the first round, especially going after Pujols. He figured Pujols wouldn't hit that many. Schwarber would be able to have a short round where he didn't have to go
Yeah.
the full 4.5 minutes or whatever it was. Um, but yeah, Soto. I would have loved to see Soto shuffle his way out of a couple batting practice pitches. He did not do it, but yeah, Soto won over Julio Rodriguez. I'm trying to think of the other kind of like impressive performances. I guess it was cool that Pujols was there and hit some home runs, whatever. I can't really be that happy about it.
Yeah, I would say I fully don't care. I'm not like angry, but also it like does nothing for me. It's sort of like we've honored him a lot. Yeah, you gotta at some point you gotta leave for me to miss you. I don't know. Like I've seen it's a lot of them. So whatever. God bless. One of the best players of all time. Fantastic. He's 100 years old and everything he's doing is impressive. So great.
Sadly, no one hit one out of the stadium. There was a lot of speculation that perhaps that could be a thing, but I believe the longest one maybe was Pete Alonso. I think he hit one like 481.
Mm.
But also the whole Pete Alonso thing just led to some really terrific memes. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Pete Alonso, very much someone who takes a home run derby seriously, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I don't know. It also like might be a bit at this point. Like I feel like
Yeah.
he knows that people see him that way, so he's like lifting weights in between. That, of course, made an appearance on MLB Images That Precede Unfortunate Events, which is
Right.
a great Twitter follow. My personal favorite was the image of him like with his eyes closed, kind of meditating. And it said me at 3 a.m. trying not to throw up in the back of my Uber,
Yeah.
keep my passenger rating. I think there was another one that was really good, but yeah, fun stuff all around.
Absolutely. Fun, very fun stuff. And yeah, and Alonso seems like a fun guy. So I think some of that he is playing into, which is good. It's entertainment. So yeah.
Yeah, but ultimately he did not three-peat. It's hard to do even in a home run derby. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if he just doesn't do it at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Like I think he felt he needed to defend his title, but
Till it's gone.
there's
Yeah.
probably nothing to be gained from continuing to do it. But maybe
Unless
he enjoys it. I mean, he's good at it.
Right, unless you do one derby where it's legitimately the 8 biggest home run hitters in baseball, where
Right.
Judge and Stanton and Alonso, in that case, like the 8 best derby dudes, are
Right.
doing it, which hasn't been the case. It's like we got some of them in there this time, but if Stanton and Judge aren't in it, it's kind of like those are, we're missing 2 of the biggest
Right.
derby guys.
I
So
mean, I know he's not a name that anyone really recognizes outside of Cubs world, but Patrick Wisdom would have been really fun to see in a home run derby.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I bet he would put on a decent show and bring Ichiro back. Everyone said Ichiro would win a derby if he did it because he can just
Just
like
a bunch
poke
of
it
line
over the wall.
drives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that would all be fun. So
Yeah, well, and it also every time they have a home run derby, it makes me think of how awesome it's going to be the next time the game is at Wrigley Field because I mean it's been I think 1990 was the last time they had the All Star game there, and
hmm
obviously Wrigley is very different. Everything in Cubs land is very different. So just the idea of like being in a rooftop seat or seeing balls hit off the scoreboard at Wrigley would be pretty cool.
Totally. And that has to come soon. And as I think you said before, hopefully that comes when the Cubs are good, whenever that is. Because
Agreed.
they're historically bad right now. I think this would be the worst. It's the worst Cubs winning percentage. If the year ended with this winning percentage, would be the worst. I think it'd be the worst in over 50 years. So that's pretty wild to know. And speaking of when the Cubs are going to get better, do you have any, before
Yeah.
we talk draft, do you have any other parting all-star thoughts?
Well, no parting All Star thoughts. I just want to take a quick moment to let the fans know that this episode is not brought to you by DraftKings.
It's not, but yeah, just a quick let you know this episode's not brought to you by DraftKings. If they pay us for the work, the ads, then maybe something could be. But it's only been 5 months, so it's hard to get that PayPal right. So PayPal, who knows if it gets. Is this a Louis DeJoy problem? Is it lost in the PayPal mail somewhere? Is this
Is that a Postmaster General reference?
it sure is, baby. And
Nice. What are you, Ken Schultz?
oh yeah, I wish. So let's talk some draft, MLB
Yeah.
draft stuff. So the Cubs basically, this was a draft where I think there was sort of 7 players on a tier. So you're like, all right, the Cubs are going to get one of these 7 guys, like in tier 1 more or less, and you could nitpick a little bit. And then so weirdly 4 of those players were available when the Cubs picked at 7, and the Cubs picked none of them. So they picked none. What they did, I think this was put well. It's sort of akin to trading back because baseball has this stupid thing where the slot payment that is allotted to each pick. So what you can choose to do is choose best player available, who will probably demand the slot amount or above, or you can make a deal with a guy and sort of pay him under slot and then get to pick a better guy in round 2. I don't know why this fucking sport can't get on board like every other sport does, where you just pick the best player available and you pay him whatever.
Yeah, it's silly.
but whatever. And that's all. That's not to say that the Cubs didn't make a great pick. Maybe they did. The guy was a right-handed pitcher out of Oklahoma named Cade Horton, who about a month ago had an ERA in the high fives, but he was coming off of Tommy John surgery, and then he added a slider, the metrics to it, and also what he was doing with it in the College World Series seemed amazing. He throws mid upper 90s. He was also offered a scholarship to play quarterback at Oklahoma. He was a two-way player who also was a hitter at third base. And some people, I think Jim Callis was saying he considered him to be the best college pitcher in the draft. So that all sounds great. You know,
Right. Now, who would you have wanted them to take with that pick?
so I think Kevin Pereira was a catcher out of Georgia Tech, who people aren't sure if he's going to stick at catcher, but had is a big power prospect. Cam Collier was still on the board, who was a guy who was putting up great numbers, sort of like a couple years too young, really. He graduated high school early. He did the Bryce Harper thing, so graduated high school early, so he can go to junior college and get to the draft like super young. So those are a couple of the names, and I'm not sure this wasn't the right way to do it, but it's frustrating when you are a big market team and you tell me your strategy is to trade down as opposed to just go big on whoever the highest, the biggest talent is there.
Right.
And part of that strategy was to get exactly who they got in the second round, which is a high school lefty named Jackson Ferris, who they're probably going to pay over slot. So that's how the money yin-yanging whatever happened. So I mean, what the Cubs picked almost exclusively pitchers in this draft. The first two picks were both pitchers, one college, one high school, but
and Mark Maguire's son, right?
As far as like the weird picks to be aware of, so Mason Maguire, Mark Maguire's son, high school right-handed pitcher, was picked in the eighth round.
And do we know anything about him?
Not really.
Being Mark Maguire's son?
I saw he was throwing 90 to 92, which whatever. I mean, there's pitchers that get by with that. Now he's a high schooler, so it could pop up from there. But really, it's
apparently Raleigh Fingers taught him a pitch just by telling it to him.
Oh, look at you with the draft facts. That's I did not know that. Yeah, the other notables, I'll tell you, the particular notables, there's a guy named Matthew Peters out of Ivy Tech in Indiana who's up to 101. He grew like 9 inches after his senior year of high school.
Damn.
In the round 13, the Cubs picked a guy who was not expected to get down to that round, Luis Rujano out of Sunshine State Elite Academy in Florida. And he was a commit to college. And once he got past the first couple rounds, people assumed he was definitely going to go to South Florida, but he's signing with the Cubs. So that is nice. A good get. And then my favorite weird pick is I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but Nazir Mule, which is a crazy sounding name. From your home state of New Jersey. Do you know Passaic County Technical Institute, Adam?
I don't. I've heard of Passaic. I didn't know there was a technical institute there, but apparently they have a baseball team.
They do. And he's a super athletic right-handed pitcher who's up to 100. And also in terms on the showcase circuit, as a hitter, he was putting up like higher exit velocities than the guys who were drafted in the top 10, basically.
Damn.
So he's picked in the 4th round. Not 100% sure if he's going to sign or not. The Cubs announced him as just a pitcher instead of a two-way player, but that's interesting. That's at least something weird and fun in the 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if Ohtani really is a unicorn, or if we will see more two-way players at some point. It would be fun for the game, I think.
Yeah, I think Ohtani is almost surely a unicorn, but I think what would make sense to me is if there are guys, it makes more sense to me if there's guys who are primarily hitters but can be like a 1-inning reliever.
Like a Michael Lorenzen if you were better at hitting.
Kind of, yeah, right. Where it's like, and I know the Angels were starting him this year, but like Lorenzen with the Reds certainly was that 1-inning reliever. Right. That would make a lot more sense to me. I feel like that seems like a more sustainable thing. So who knows? But it's a right-handed pitcher who can hammer a baseball with a bat. Apparently, he has a really weird-looking swing people think might not work, but he hits it hard and he throws it hard too. So that's fun.
And speaking of Ohtani, one final All-Star moment that was quite fun was him getting picked off by Clayton Kershaw. after getting a single in the first inning, which I think he just had no thought that Kershaw would throw over there.
Kershaw, what are you doing? Why? What? We're
I
picking
think it's
off.
kind of funny. I don't know.
It is fun. Yeah, I do think it's funny. But if I was Otani, I would be laughing and like, what? It's the All-Star game. One batter and we're picking off dudes. I guess
Right.
it is. I guess it is like it's almost an Air Bud situation where there's no rule against picking off someone in an All-Star game. Has anyone tried to do it in years? I don't think so. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you wouldn't like take a charge in the NBA All-Star game unless you had to. It's kind of
Right.
like that, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So as far as a brief draft recap, I think that's the main thing. I think if we're talking about where Cade Horton slides into the Cubs like prospect list, the first rounder they picked, I think you're looking maybe middle back end of the top 10, probably. A lot of talent. We just haven't seen it play that much.
Is it safe to assume that he would be the next person of everyone the Cubs drafted to be seen in the majors? Is that probably the case?
I think so. Yeah. In terms of this year, at least.
Not this year, but I'm saying like of everyone they drafted, is Horton the person who is most likely to debut first, given his age and experience?
Right. Oh,
from
but I mean like from this draft class. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially because looking at the picks here, the rounds 2, 3, rounds 2, 3, 4 are all high school picks.
Mhm.
And then they went with a couple of college guys, Brandon Birdsell from Texas Tech in round 5, Will Frisch from Oregon State in round 6. So, and in round 9, Connor Noland is another guy, right-handed pitcher out of Arkansas. Those guys, I guess, are, age-wise and they're college polished. But yeah, I think Cade Horton from this class, you could put serious money on being the first to the majors from the group.
Well, I tell you what, depending on what happens at the trade deadline, maybe we'll see some of these guys sooner than later.
Yeah.
the after last year and how good it was, the fact that the Field of Dreams games is a post trade deadline Cubs and Reds matchup, it might be pretty bad.
So the Field of Dreams game is supposed to be fun because it's major league teams playing in like a sort of little league sort of stadium-ish, the cornfield. This now is just a minor league game in a minor league park, basically. It's like these are minor league teams. This is where they belong. These teams should be put in a cornfield, honestly.
Yeah, when they show the image of players on both sides, and I'm sad to say this, like the two of the Cubs they show very well may not be there. Like Contreras and Happ are two of the people who are headlining that game. I imagine Votto will still be on the Reds, but like,
right.
Who are we going to be watching on August 11th? Who am I going to be watching when I go to Cincinnati 2 days later?
Oh, yeah, you're going to Cincinnati. You said August 13th or something?
Yeah, so it's like they have the Thursday Field of Dreams game, then a weird Friday off day, and then Saturday, Sunday in Cincinnati.
That's gonna be a real gross setup. Yeah. But I guess, August 2nd is the trade deadline. So that's the next real notable sort of marker on the season, I guess. And one nice thing about this episode is we didn't talk about like the Cubs playing baseball games on their own.
It's true. It is absolutely true. And I don't think we need to.
No.
Did we? Was there much that we missed? I mean, I guess since the last episode, the Cubs salvaged a game against the Mets, lost an incredibly frustrating doubleheader because they can't win in extra innings.
Right, they can't win in extra innings. David Robertson closed it out to avoid a 10-game losing streak, to just stop it at 9. So keep those double-digit losing streaks limited this year. That's pretty cool. I mean, nothing, and it's sort of like until the draft happened, trades weren't really happening because front offices were focused here on the draft, and then now. Trade chatter is going to start. More trades are going to start happening between now and August 2nd. And then that's sort of the next check-in. And then we see what this team thinks they are going forward. Right. It is at a point where I have, forget this year, I have almost no belief they're going to compete next year. So that, it's really, you don't know till you see the offseason, but
Right. Yeah. August 2nd is the trade deadline, and also the deadline for which Kevin is going to decide whether or not to retire from this podcast.
I mean,
And
pretty
honestly,
close.
I get it. I
Yeah,
understand.
pretty close. Do you who do we have anyone waiting in the either do you have any podcasts you can make a trade with to replace a midseason
Hmm.
retirement, or do you have anyone you can call up, any young prospects?
That's a good question. I mean, what do you think your value is on the market?
Not a lot. Not a
Are you
lot.
in your Pujol stage?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I have a higher value when it comes to TV podcasts, probably, but when it comes to baseball
Sure.
podcasts, yeah. If you want to, yeah, if you want to like swap me to a Real Housewives podcast, or if you wanted to swap me with like
Right.
a Bachelor podcast, you could probably get a very good prospect.
Well, I do
Podcast wise,
feel like I might be able to pick up Cato Kalin below slot. So if
dude,
that's
absolutely.
doable.
Then you could get someone on the third mic that's way better than a normal third mic. You could really go for depth there. And I would absolutely listen to a you and Cato Kalin podcast.
Yeah, it's like cameo, but make it a podcast.
Yeah. That's oh man, what a pitch that is. Uh cool. All right. Yeah. And anything else for you? Any other notes for you besides if people haven't gotten your album yet, go get your album, which was number
Yeah,
one. Did we
it
say
was.
that last time?
I don't think so because it hadn't happened yet.
Well,
Because it
that's a
was
good
this
reason
past
not to
Friday.
say it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping it would be, and it was. So thank you to whomever purchased it. I did actually get a message from someone who's like, "Hey, I know you from away games and checked out the album, and it's really
Holy
good."
shit.
And it wasn't Tyler or Sarah. We have other fans.
That's amazing. I mean, this podcast is worth it just for that. Thank you, whoever that was, for
Yes, yeah, it was very
supporting
nice.
actual stand-up comedy, because that is
Exactly.
genuinely helpful.
Yes.
And that's the thing, I think whenever you do a thing for a job, you can overlook the accomplishments, because
Hmm.
it's sort of the, well, if I'm in the club, who cares? Like, it's like, if I can do it, I guess
Hmm.
that's no big deal. But you had the number one album in the country that week.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
And it's one of those things that like you get to just say that forever. Doesn't
hmm
matter that it's not anymore, but it was when it debuted. There you go.
absolutely. Yeah. So
You got
hell yeah.
anything to plug?
You know, not really. If you guys want to hear me on live on Sirius XM channel 99, I do a weekly radio show over there with a comedian named Sean Donnelly, and occasionally other comedians. It's called Celebrate at 3 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday on Sirius 99.
Critics are calling it aggressively Irish.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, Sean introduced us this week. He dropped his both his middle and confirmation name. He's like, it's Sean
Oh boy.
Patrick Paul Donnelly. I'm like, oh damn, Kevin Brian Thomas McCaffrey, I guess. Let's potato this thing up. But yeah, that, and I got podcasts about TV stuff, about Sex in the City, It's, and the Bridgerton Bros. I do with a very funny TV writer named John Daly. If you guys have interests in those fields, so
Yep, and don't sleep on Kevin's album, Nice and Drunk. Still a great album.
thank you, thanks everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.